What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel. Today is Tuesday, July 3rd. It is day 20 of the World Cup and last day of the round of 16 matches. So I am here with my two brothers, Christian and Matt, and we are also joined by Paul from Over the Bar. Paul, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
Doing well. Can you tell us a little bit about Over the Bar?
Yeah, so it's an independent football site. We started 14 months ago, I think it was now, just a group of friends wanting to discuss and share opinions about soccer, sorry.
You can call it football.
And basically we started to grow more than we expected and at a much faster rate. And we've got a pool of writers now and it's started to really develop into its own sort of organic scene, really. It's good.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we have that linked in our video description for anyone watching live on YouTube, and then podcast listeners, it is in the podcast show notes. So be sure to go check them out. Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Dave. Thanks for asking.
You are back from your vacation. Hopefully it was a wonderful time down in Houston.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it down there.
Good, good. We are happy to have you back. And Christian is joining us as well on his commute home from the office. Christian, how are you doing?
I was okay until you chose me to be last to ask if I'm okay, and I don't know. I just feel some type of way. I've never been last before, so
yeah. Well, you're in the car. You got turn signals in the background, and so I figured, we'd come to you last in the hope that you would be somewhere. But you're not, and that's fascinating. All right, enough chit chat. Let's talk about World Cup action. Before we talk about the actual matches today, big news I woke up to. You guys were texting me. Löw is staying on as German manager, even though they crashed out in pretty spectacular fashion, especially by German standards. Paul, what do you think of Löw staying on with the German team?
Well, to be honest, I actually can't say I'm not surprised. After the victory in 2014, he's kind of a cult hero there. And he has really changed the game. There's been books written about it. I think Das Reboot's one of the main ones that people will be aware of. He's really got his feet under the table in the German Football Association. But I suppose that this tournament, it's a huge disappointment the way that they've gone out. And there'll be a lot of German fans really upset about it. But he's done so much for them. And all right, his selection for the squad this year will have been questioned. I mean, it was by us on our website, so I can't imagine what it would have been like in Germany when you take people like Khedira over Goetze, who was the hero at the last World Cup. You leave Leroy Sané out when you need pace on the wings. So I think he'll be fine till the next European Championships, 2 years' time. And then if they're not in the semi-finals at least, then that'll be curtains for him really there. But he's been there a long time and people forget that. But, all people really remember him for, apart from the World Cup win, is the videos on YouTube of him picking his nose or backside or things like that, So, but yeah, it's I'm not surprised by the decision.
Okay, you're not surprised, and you're somewhat okay with it. Matt, thoughts on Löw staying?
Yeah, I'm fine with him staying. They won in 2014. I'm always for keeping coaches on, kind of keeping like the culture together of teams. I know at the international level, it's a little bit different, and coaches are under a little bit more pressure, but I like that they're keeping him. I'm actually a little surprised, just given the nature of how international managers are judged, that he's staying. But I'm excited. Well, and like Paul said, basically he has until the Euro Championships to, at least make the semifinal. So he's got at least 2 more years.
Christian, thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just relocating. Dave, you go first.
Okay, so my thoughts are, I find it interesting. I think at the international level, we see this a lot of times. Speaking from an American perspective, anyone who goes into their second cycle as an international coach, I think they need to, sometimes the culture can get a bit stale. And Löw has been there for more than 10 years, which is something you don't really see too often in international soccer, especially at the highest levels. And so my one fear is that players have gotten somewhat complacent and, maybe that's why they didn't perform at the World Cup. If anybody kind of wouldn't get complacent, it's the Germans and their kind of culture, and so it might be okay at the end of the day. But for me, this was a bit surprising because I thought this was a natural point to just move on. Get a new cycle in there, get a new manager, see if they can institute whether it's a new philosophy or just an infusion and a difference. And so for me, I thought it was a bit surprising. I thought it was a natural point where everybody should kind of move on. Christian, are you settled in your new location yet?
I'm still moving around, but I can go really quick.
Okay.
So I was very surprised, to be completely honest. I know he signed the contract before the World Cup even started, but he has been there so long, and you rarely see managers go through more than one cycle at a time. He's a brilliant, brilliant tactician, but this time around, things definitely got stale. And I know they're in a transition period, but I'm shocked that the German Federation is keeping him on with what their expectations are and how much he kind of failed to live up to the hype this time around.
To an extent, yeah. So I can agree with it too, but there is an amount of goodwill that he's earned. They did win the World Cup. They won the Confederations Cup with basically a B squad. And so I can understand both things, but that's enough about Löw and Germany. Let's talk about today's matches. First up was Sweden versus Switzerland. That finished 1-0 to Sweden. Paul, what were your thoughts on the match?
It wasn't one on paper that I can imagine many people have been looking forward to. It was disappointing as well to see quite a lot of empty seats in the ground at the beginning of the game. But if I'm being honest with you, it was kind of like watching two League One sides, which for anyone who doesn't know the English pyramid, it's third tier. There was a lot of the ball in the air and not enough culture in the final third. Although having said that, the break leading to the goal for Sweden and the way that Forsberg created space for himself was exceptional. He got a bit lucky with the strike because had it not hit the defender, it was going straight to the keeper, and it was quite a tame effort. But yeah, it wasn't a game that will have really grabbed the attention of many, but it actually turned out to be quite a good watch in my opinion. So yeah, it was not bad.
I agree with that. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty even match. I thought both teams, the ball was in the air a lot. Both teams were kind of getting in dangerous areas, but couldn't really grab that chance, or have that little bit of quality to, get a good effort on goal. Most of the saves the goalies made were more or less right at them. There wasn't too many times where I thought the team had a chance where it probably, there was times I think if there was a little more quality, they should have scored, but there wasn't any of the times where they didn't score, and I think there was something that should have gone in. There was a lot of crossing, especially from Switzerland's end. And I thought they did a good job of finding space, but just couldn't get that quality.
Christian, thoughts on the match?
Yeah, I thought it was much different than I kind of expected it to go. I don't think there was a lot of attacking, but I didn't think it was as sit back and defend as I kind of expected both teams to be. Both teams had their chances. It wasn't a game to really get you out of your seat and get excited about because, to be honest, there weren't huge names playing out there, and there just wasn't consistent attacking from maybe one team just piling it on, and there wasn't really an open game in the sense that there was one team attacking the other team going back and forth, back and forth. That didn't really happen either. It was just kind of even, and a lot of the game was played in the midfield, and it was that part of it is kind of dull, but it's not like, as a soccer fan, it's different than a neutral. I feel like a neutral would come into that game and think it was awful. They'd be like, why did I just waste my time watching that? As a soccer fan, you can appreciate what they're actually doing in the middle of the field, and there was so much passion and hustle really from the midfield that probably goes unnoticed, and it was really actually impressive from both teams, and I was entertained. I wasn't able to catch most of the first half because unfortunately I have a job outside of this. I know it surprises a lot of people that I have something else I do, but yeah, I had to be there, and it just, the second half was entertaining. It just wasn't great.
Why would that surprise people?
Because I'm just so good at this. People probably think this is what I do.
All right, definitely. Yeah, so I think I'm going to echo a lot of what you guys have said. I definitely expected it to be a bit more defensive. And again, just touching on everything you guys said, it wasn't quite as defensive as we expected. And Christian, I know you missed the first half, but there were chances aplenty in the first half, specifically for Sweden. And then as the game wore on, the chances sort of, calmed down, or at least weren't as blatant. I mean, Berg, the center forwards for Sweden, or one of the two strikers, he had two blatant, just really bad misses in the first 9 minutes. I didn't know if that was going to come back to bite them. And then he had another miss in the 28th minute, but Sommer ended up saving that. So again, I thought Sweden was very okay with just pushing Switzerland out wide and swinging in crosses. That was their game plan. That was their defensive setup. And they have done that the entire tournament. I think Germany had 35 crosses against them. Mexico had more than 20, and I think South Korea was right around there too. Sweden is okay with dealing, with forcing, the attacking team out wide and then just dealing with the crosses that ended up getting shot in. I don't have a ton of, honestly, notes too much from this particular first half. The kind of the big play outside of the two Berg missed chances for me was the referee not giving a yellow to Berami in the first half, and then shortly after, Lustig gets a yellow for kind of the same sort of foul, and that was a little bit of inconsistency from the ref. And then in the 39th minute, Rodriguez and Zamali for Switzerland had a really good combination play, and Zamali ended up booting it over the top of the net. Paul, anything you wanted to highlight from the first half?
No, I mean, I think it's quite telling. By halftime, both teams had 7 shots on target. 7 shots in total. Sweden had 1 on target, Switzerland 2. And like you said, they're creating a lot of chances, but they're just not clinical enough. And at this level, it's really showing when you compare it to other games. And just like what Christian said and what you've touched on as well yourself, expecting it to be more defensive, with the way that Sweden would push other teams out wide. Against Germany, they only had something like 24.5% possession all game. And Mexico, it was something like low 30s. So they are used to that. But against Switzerland, they were kind of more on the front foot, which was good. It was refreshing to see. But they weren't cultured enough at it. That's the real issue for them.
Matt, anything else from the first half?
Yeah. So you're talking about the Berg where Sommer made the save going far post. It was going back. I think that was the play where there was the handball to start the play, and he crossed it and the ball came back. It was like the second kind of wave of that attack. Yep. So if that shot would have went in, does VAR come into play there?
I don't know. And this is where VAR is still, we still don't have the clarity on what it is, because it's supposed to be while the attacking movement is happening, they can go and review it. And so that's the language in the VAR rulebook, but I don't necessarily know what that means. And so it would have been interesting to see what would have happened.
Because
so I
it
don't
was
have
like the second wave of that. It wasn't like directly off that handball, but they crossed it, the ball came back out, they got it, and then crossed it again, and they almost scored. So I just didn't know what the ruling on that was.
Yeah. Christian, any other thoughts from the first half?
No, not really. I didn't see much, so.
Oh, yeah. Last thing I just wanted to highlight, Ekdal had a really good chance in the 41st minute. Cross came in, and it was about like stomach height, and he chose to try to kick it with his foot rather than head it. And I thought, that was the wrong call. I think Stu Holden correctly pointed it out. He really should have gone with his head there, blasted it over the net. And the first half ends 0-0. But again, it was kind of an interesting 0-0. It wasn't that dull, sort of boring 0-0 that I think we all expected. First thing from the second half, I have in my notes, 65th minute. That's where the goal comes from. I know, Paul, you touched on it already, or was that before we went live? I can't remember, but no, that was when we went live. Yeah, you touched on it already. Forsberg gets the goal. I mean, it all starts with Sweden kind of playing out of the back, and Forsberg works the ball wide to Toivonen, but stays centrally. Forsberg is an interesting. It's interesting how he plays left midfield, because he doesn't really stay very wide. He always kind of comes inside and almost acts as an attacking midfielder, even though he on paper plays left midfield, and he never kind of operates that way. But he's in the middle of the park, plays it wide to Toivonen, who had pulled out wide. Augustinsson, the left back, overlaps and draws the defense out, and Toivonen plays it back across to Forsberg, who's got just acres of space in the middle of the field. He does a nice move, drops his shoulder, creates space for himself, hits a shot directly at the goalkeeper, and it's unfortunate. Akanji for Switzerland gets a touch on it. Paul, anything from the goal that you want to point out and break down?
Not really, other than what we've already covered, apart from that little shimmy, that drop of the shoulder that buys him that extra yard of space to get the shot away was really quite a classy move. When you compare it to the other aspects of Sweden's style of play, it was a nice highlight that it had a bit of class about it. Although he does get lucky, because like I said to you before, the shot is going straight at the keeper, and it's the deflection that takes it out of his hands. And it was quite a tame effort. But no, it was a good bit of build-up play, and it's definitely that little bit of a run inside and stretching the defense. Good to see.
Matt, thoughts on the goal?
Yeah, I thought it was good build-up play. I thought Forsberg did a great job getting that space at the top of the box. Did they end up giving him the goal?
Because it was on target, yes. He technically gets the goal.
Yeah. I mean, you shoot, you hope for the deflection. I mean, it wasn't the greatest of shots, but I mean, he put it in the right area, and that's why we say you shoot from outside the box.
Yeah, we're always hammering that home. Christian, any other thoughts to add from the goal?
Yeah, I'm really really upset they gave him that goal because I was really rooting for own goal to get this golden boot at the end of the tournament, and Harry Kane's catching up now, as we'll get into. So it was a really, really classy move, the way that he drops his shoulder and he just frees himself up. And honestly, that is not as easy as it looks. I don't think people understand those little shimmies. Like, they looked like he was just running, but he just completely bamboozles the defense. Ooh, how about that word? He bamboozles the defender. And I was very, very impressed with the way that he plays. And I know the commentators were going on about it. They were just saying he really is starting to look more like he does for RB Leipzig. And yeah, he doesn't have probably that core cast around him that he does there, but he looked pretty good. And I was actually impressed with the way that he was playing, specifically in the second half when I was watching. And I agree. You said he comes in from the left and he isn't really that kind of outside mid that you kind of think of stereotypically. But he's kind of playing that same position that Ozil plays on the right for Germany sometimes, or Muller. They kind of just float around. And I think that we're seeing more and more of that this day anyway. There's obviously certain teams focus a lot on their width, but there are other teams who play more creative attacking mids out wide who just kind of float around. So I don't really think there's any – I don't think you had an issue with it, but I was just kind of highlighting it.
To an extent. I mean, for me, he plays it differently than I think a lot of other players because, like, he just almost is never wide. Like, he basically functions as a center attacking midfielder. And so I agree that, you know, teams are playing, you know, players a little bit differently there. But for me, it was a little bit different. 80th minute, there was a header and Forsberg's on the line. You know, I think the goalkeeper would have had it, but men on the post, you know, I wanted to highlight that. Christian, getting back to your point about Forsberg, I still am not overly impressed with him. I've highlighted this on previous podcasts. I think today was his best match. We've seen him at the World Cup for me personally, but I just don't necessarily see the hype around him. I mean, I think that he has moments, but again, it's somewhat inconsistent. He's got some careless giveaways. And so for me, I just don't see that, like, him being this next level, like, world-class kind of player. And, you know, he had that moment of brilliance, but for me, I just don't necessarily see it. Paul, anything else you want to add about Forsberg?
No, I agree. He's been around for a good number of years, but he's not really ever taken the next step to become a better player. He's quite wasteful on the ball. I did see a stat as well that before today's game, something like 21 out of the whole of Sweden's 32 shots on target from the World Cup have been taken by either Forsberg or Berg. It's quite selfish, but the shot accuracy is something like 19%. So it kind of gives you an idea of the quality of the players you're dealing with there. And like you mentioned about him drifting in from the left and being not so much a wide player, but like an inside left player. He's part of the main build-up, and their accuracy for passing is something like 72%. And only Iran and Iceland have a worse pass accuracy at this World Cup, which, again, you know, it's expecting a lot from Sweden. But they did just beat a team that was ranked 6th in the world by FIFA. How Switzerland got that ranking, I'll never know. It's beyond me because they looked like a pub team, to be quite honest. They really didn't look like a professional unit at times.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, the U.S. was ranked number 4 in the world. So I think that tells you all you need to know about the FIFA rankings. I didn't want to say anything about that. Yeah, the FIFA rankings, I don't think any of us really put too much stock in it. Late in the match, I thought Sweden was doing an interesting job of defending Shaqiri, where I don't know why everybody doesn't just do this, but they were just completely taking away his left foot and just, like, daring him to go right, and he just wouldn't. And he just wouldn't throughout. And so, like, I just thought he would have done that a bit more. Christian, would you like to highlight your tweet that you had about it?
My tweet was just amazing. It was just I just could not believe that he would not use his right foot. Like, I put this tweet out there that I just put it in quotes, and it was pretty much Shaqiri talking, say, "Hey, I lost my right leg. Has anyone seen it?" That's pretty much what it said. But it was SpongeBob holding out his leg. No big deal. You guys just got to check it out. I was really just shocked that a player of his quality really will not use his right foot. Iron Robin does the same thing. It drives me nuts for someone who is that good And I know it works most of the time, but which just blows my mind for a professional defender to just allow that to happen because you know what he's going to do. But I don't understand because they were backing off almost 3 or 4 yards away from him. Like, okay, go down the right. Go ahead. Just walk down the line. And he would not do it. He still was trying to curl the ball in with his left foot. Honestly, they were so far away that he was able to do it with his left foot, which blew my mind late in the game. There was another point that I wanted to highlight outside of Shaqiri. I don't know if that's fine now or if you want me to wait, but
Yeah, sure.
okay. Olsen out wide towards the end of that game just continually was getting fouled and they weren't calling. There was one where he dove, but the rest, like, he was clearly being fouled and the ref was just like, nah, get up. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
I noticed it, in a couple instances.
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, I think like towards the end of the game, especially when a team's winning, they're trying to waste time and going down easy. And he knows if he calls the foul, there's a minute and a half of the game. So I think that he's just trying to let it play on.
Fair enough. I thought Granqvist, the center back for Sweden, was an absolute monster that game. He's been their best player, I think, throughout this World Cup. And again, we saw it just winning headers, blocking shots. Fantastic. 93rd minute, the breakaway happens. I thought it was great hold-up play by Clausen out wide. I mean, this is late in the match, 1-0. Switzerland's pushing numbers forward. Sweden gets a hold of the ball, and they work it out wide to the right side of their own half. And a lot of times what players do is they panic. They know it's late in the match and they just boot it upfield. They want it away from their goal. What he does is he holds up the play. He allows his team to get out and get out from the back, and he lays the ball off. I can't remember who exactly he lays it off to. I don't know if it's Kiza Thielen or if he's the one who plays it the second ball. But eventually, number 22, again, Kiza Thielen is how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm sure I'm butchering that pronunciation, gets the ball, and Olsen, Christian's guy, who he was just highlighting here, is just streaming down the middle of the field.
My guy.
Yeah, your guy. They work it to him in the middle of the field. He's streaming down in on goal and gets fouled just a half inch, basically, outside of the box. So originally called a penalty. It gets reversed and play outside of the box. Guy gets a red card because he didn't make a play on the ball. But that was the last kind of noteworthy thing I wanted to highlight from this. Paul, anything you wanted to mention about this play or anything from the match?
That particular move, the counter attack, I thought was like watching a completely different team to what we'd seen for the other 90-odd minutes. Like you say, it was the 93rd minute, that breakaway. It was a really good move. You could argue that he should get a shot away, but the defender's tracking back quite well. And I know that they went to the VAR and everything, but it kind of came across to me like he was waiting for the foul, trying to play for the penalty. Which is kind of annoying because you want him to take the opportunity to put the game at bed, have a shot, have some balls, But that's pretty much it on that.
All right. Matt, anything else from this game?
Yeah, I just want to say I think Shaqiri played pretty. I know we were talking about just him not going right, but overall, I think he was by far Switzerland's best player. I thought he was playing extremely good balls into the box, and I'm excited to see where he goes from Stoke.
That's a good point. Yeah, we did kind of gloss over that. I did think Shaqiri had a good game, but I also thought that he was almost isolated too much on the right wing and right midfield. A couple of times we saw him kind of come into the middle of the park to try to get more involved, but I would have liked to see him even more involved and maybe more in a central role because I thought he just kind of got isolated sometimes and drifted out of the game. Christian, anything else you wanted to highlight from this match?
I just really was disappointed with Switzerland all around. I expected a lot more of them, especially going forward. I thought I honestly expected them to be much the better team, and they weren't. I think Sweden honestly were the better team over the course of the game. And I just honestly am disappointed for the number 6 team. I know that's like a FIFA ranking and who cares, but they are ranked there for a reason. They're usually very consistent. And I thought they were compared to how they played against Brazil when they tied that game, like they got a result there. And I don't think they've been at that level since.
But just so why they haven't exactly been on fire offensively. So why did you expect them to be better offensively?
Because Sweden, the way they play is they sit deeper. Like I expected Switzerland almost to have the ball the majority of the time and just keep knocking on the door. They didn't really take that play at all during the game.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so fair enough. That brings us to the end of that section. So Sweden progresses on to the quarterfinals, and we have Colombia versus England.
Wait, before we
talk
move on,
about.
can you name the 3 teams that are on that side of the bracket before we even get to this last game?
So no, I can't because
what? It's Russia, Croatia, and Sweden. Those are 3 of the 4 quarterfinalists on one side of the bracket. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, stop it. You're putting pressure on England. We're going to lose.
Well, that leads us to our next game, which is Colombia versus England. It finished 1-1 in regulation, went to extra time, still 1-1. 4-3 on penalties to England. Paul, you're the England fan, so we got to go to you first. Thoughts on the match?
Wow. I thought England were exceptional for maybe 65 minutes of it, then started to allow themselves to get annoyed by Colombia. They get the goal late on, and penalties, dreaded penalties. Never thought I'd ever see us win a penalty shootout. And I don't know if you saw our tweet earlier, but out of the 7 penalty shootouts England have ever been at in a major tournament, let alone World Cups, they've only won 1 prior to today. So, wow, I had to get some composure before I answered your call to come on. It's just, I was bouncing, but I've done a very English thing. I've had a cup of tea, not a beer. So I thought, all right, that's it. I've got to be stereotypical.
Well, that's fantastic. We're excited for you. I know we've had a lot of English guests on the podcast, especially recently. So we're happy for everybody. I know I predicted, so I'm going to own up to it. I predicted Colombia to advance on penalties before the match started. But as the game went on, I was hard rooting for England. I did not like the way Colombia approached this match, but we'll get to my thoughts in a little bit. Christian, thoughts on the match?
Yeah, I was very disappointed with Colombia. I didn't think they played well at all, honestly, until extra time. And they really were just trying to rile up England. That's what it seemed like. They were really dirty, and England weren't innocent in that. I think England were kind of playing their part a little bit more quietly. But that game was extremely dirty throughout the entire time. Like, there were so many yellow cards after England scored their first goal. It was insane.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that from Colombia in the 2014 World Cup too. I mean, this is kind of how Colombia plays. And, we didn't necessarily see it in the group stage, but this happened when Colombia played Brazil in the 2014 World Cup. It was the most fouls, I think, ever. At least, yep. Yeah, that I could find doing my research. And, we kind of saw that side of them come out once the knockout play started. Matt, your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, I thought England was the much better team. Colombia was, like you guys said, the fouls were frustrating me so much, especially with James out of the team. They didn't really have that quality in the midfield to keep their attack flowing. So they just had no sort of build-up play or quality in their final passes, and then they would just get frustrated and just start fouling. They created almost nothing through the entire match.
Yeah, and that's what was so disappointing for me, because Colombia came out in a 4-3-2-1 formation, and it basically morphed into a 4-3-1-2 or however you want to classify it. But they had 3 defensive center midfielders, and they had absolutely no width. They came out almost with the intent of just bunkering down. We're only going to attack with 3 players, and those 3 players all seem to want to congregate on the right side of the pitch, at least Quintero and Cuadrado, and they just had nothing going forward. I thought England looked fantastic defensively, but there was also an element of Colombia they only had 3 guys attacking, so it was kind of easy for England to look that good. But I don't want to take anything away from England. I thought England played fantastic throughout regulation, and obviously giving up that goal late, things started to change a bit once Colombia made some subs. But again, Colombia just came out with no intent to go forward and just sort of ceded everything to England through about 80 minutes of that match. So that was certainly interesting for me to see. Paul, anything you want to add before we go through kind of the specifics of the match?
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I was kind of expecting us to lose probably in extra time rather than regulation time. When they got that late goal, the momentum was with them, and it seemed like typical England was set in. But before the game, I was actually worried that England are a bit too nicey nice at times. We seem to have a group of young players that are really technically good, and the manager's very into his tactics and his mentality and everything. But sometimes, to win a game of football, particularly against a South American team, you need to have a player or a couple of players that are a bit snidey, a bit crafty. I don't know if can I swear?
Yeah, you can say. You can say.
I don't know how to translate it into anything other than you need a player that's a bit of a bastard, really, that'll rile the opposition.
Is that a swear word?
Bastard's not a swear in America. Yeah.
Stick up a lip on everything. But yeah, I was worried that we didn't have a mean enough player because I was kind of expecting a lot of yellow cards. I know obviously Colombia have got a bit of a reputation, but I think what we saw was exceptional by their standards in terms of fouls and how they didn't seem to have any other idea apart from stop the play, break up England's moves, win a free kick, or get England booked, and then restart and hope to break fast with the three players up front, Quintero, Cuadrado, and Falcao. But they were so grouped together that it was kind of they had a plan A and nothing else. And my concern was England would only have a plan A, which turned out to be the case as well. But hey, it doesn't matter how we won. So
yeah. And the other plan was crowd the ref with at least 4 or 5 players and scream at him as well would be their other tactical plan there. 16th minute was the first thing I had. A great cross from Trippier, and Kane gets on it but can't redirect it onto the net. I thought Juan Quintero in the first half was just dropping way too deep and coming out to the side, and there was just nobody in the middle of the field for Colombia as an outlet. And again, England did a fantastic job of not conceding any space defensively and just pressuring Colombia into just poor turnovers because they really just did not have anything going forward. Falcao was isolated up front. The 40th minute. So that basically the only thing I want to highlight from the first half, or at least the most noteworthy thing, was in the 40th minute. This was where England wins a free kick outside of the penalty area. There's a lot of pushing and shoving in the wall, and Barrios, I don't know his first name, but Barrios and Jordan Henderson have a coming together. And Barrios decides to headbutt Henderson in the chest and then drag his head up and very clearly headbutt him in the jaw. Christian, let's get your thoughts on the play. What'd you make of it? It ultimately got to be a yellow.
Okay, so I just want to say the initial head contact on his chest looked like a very tender moment between Henderson and Barrios.
It was weird.
It was very weird. He was almost like rubbing the top of his head against him like a cat would on a body. Like, it was really weird. And then all of a sudden he just like whips his head up into his jaw. That is a red card, and I am shocked that wasn't reviewed more. I am really shocked. And then later in the game, I don't know if we're going to talk about Henderson headbutting again later.
Well, let's talk about it now. Well, let's talk about it now because they kind of go together.
I don't know if it's because Henderson was like, hey, I already got headbutted. I'm going to get someone back, or what was going on there. But there was way too much headbutting happening in that game, and that first one should have been red carded. It probably would have stopped Henderson from doing that later, which, again, I don't know if they're reviewing it and telling the ref give a yellow card. That kind of is what it seemed like.
But they can't, right? I know that's what it seemed like. I know, but they shouldn't have done that because they can only review if it's a red card or whatnot. And I don't.
Yeah,
well, I guess
tempers
they
were definitely
reviewing.
flared, and the fact that the game ended with 11-on-11 after extra time just blows my mind because everyone was out of control. It was insane, and I think there were a couple of moments, especially in extra time, when Ashley Young, I forget who he beat to that. Was it Barrios?
No, it wasn't Barrios.
Yes, it was.
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah, you're right.
And he went through him. There was no cards there. And I was like, okay, whoever just gets this foul against them is getting a yellow because of the way they went into the challenge. No, one wasn't given, and that surprised me. But sorry, I've gone way too far ahead now. But okay. It was just there was a lot of malicious contact, and with that headbutt, yes, absolutely, I agree. It's a red card if that's what you thought.
Yes. All right. So Barrios should have been a red. Matt, thoughts on the play?
Yeah, so it was a weird kind of play, especially with the initial contact of where it was and, how you're supposed to, officiate that. I was fine with the yellow card, actually, and I like the manner in which they did it. I know they're not supposed to, just listen in and then give the yellow card. They're supposed to go to the VAR booth or whatever, but I thought it just helped speed up the game. There were so many stoppages and just the swarming of the ref, it just helped calm everything down real quick. He just brought him aside. He's like, all right, listen, I heard this. Everyone's being kind of an idiot right now. You get a yellow card and we'll move on. I thought there was a slight point, like there was maybe a 20-minute stretch where England kind of lost their cool, but they became kind of tame after that. But Colombia was all over the place, and especially after, I will get there, but yeah, there was just time for pretty much most of the game. Colombia was out of control.
All right, Paul, thoughts on the Hendo headbutt? The headbutt on Hendo, I should say.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the more unpopular people in England for thinking this, but I actually thought yellow card was fair. I know a lot of people were putting on social media, well, if it's above the chest and it's violent conduct, it's supposed to be a straight red. And he did go to VAR for advice on it, but at the end of the day, everybody was at it. I thought it was good game management by the referee. Keep the players on the pitch for as long as you can. You don't want to see a game reduced to odd numbers. It kind of takes the whole spirit out of it. It just means if he sends Barrios off there, then it nullifies Colombia's already null game plan. Really, they're just going to sit back anymore and hope to counterattack. But the referee's not there to try and think about what's entertaining. So if you look at it purely in the context of has he made the right decision, I think, yeah, we don't want to see players get sent off. And because there was so much going on, I thought it was a fair yellow card. I mean, the rest of England right now probably say, no, he should be sent off and hung, drawn, and quartered. But no, I'm more of a sportsman. So.
All right. I like it. I like the different viewpoint, which is always good. I mean, for me, I know Mark Geiger, he's actually an American referee who refereed this match. I thought he actually did a good job given the situation of, Colombia was there to bang bodies and to, be physical, and England certainly was doing things as well. And so, yeah, he was dishing out cards, but he never issued a red. And again, I thought he did the best given the situation from both teams. So I'm going to err on this. I was okay with this being a yellow as well. First half ends. Anyone have anything to highlight from the first half, Christian?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say I've been part of many a crowd who've yelled, "Fuck you, Geiger," many times. Okay. So I know he's not the biggest fan. Well, I guess we're not the biggest fans of him, is what I want to say.
Most popular.
He can make mistakes sometimes. Okay. But every ref does. So, yeah. I mean, that's just what it is. But there was VAR. That's why I just don't understand how something can be missed when it's blatantly in the rules.
Well, 3 of us just said that we were okay with the yellow. So
yeah, but in the rules.
Okay. Matt, do you have something else to add?
Nah, not the first half.
Okay, I thought you were putting your hand up, but that was my mistake. All right, second half comes. Penalty in the 54th minute. There is a tussle on a corner kick for England. Mark Geiger, I thought this was interesting from him. A lot of times you'll see referees stand maybe 15, 20 yards away from play. Throughout the game, especially on corners and set pieces, I mean, he was standing maybe 5 yards away from players or where the cluster was. So that was just like an interesting thing that you don't necessarily see all the time. But right before the corner kick is taken, England has 4 players lined up in a straight line, and the Colombian players are getting handsy, and Geiger is standing there telling them, I am watching you. I am going to call a penalty if there's any sort of contact or pulling or whatnot. The corner kick happens, and Carlos Sanchez brings down Harry Kane. Now, I want to go to Matt first because I think he's got some interesting things to say on it, and I actually can kind of understand where he's coming from. So, Matt, you want to take us through your thoughts on the penalty?
Okay, yeah. So, as you broke it down, like the straight line, and then somehow, I don't know how Sanchez got in that line. I don't know how he managed to get in the line, but he started out his defensive positioning with both arms around Kane so that he was like kind of blocking him, like right after the ref said, put your hands down. And as this play starts to develop, the players start moving. Kane kind of pulls him and throws his arm over him and holding him back to get around him. He does like kind of like a swim move type thing, like a NFL defensive end type thing. And he as the play goes, Sanchez is, because his arms were originally out, is kind of and trying to follow his man. He's kind of on the heels of Harry Kane. But Harry Kane doesn't let go of him pretty much throughout the whole play. And as Kane got away from him, Geiger stopped looking. And the next time he looks, Kane is on the ground. But I think Kane, there wasn't for the point in which he fell, there was no contact there. I agree, like the original play, he was holding him, but Kane did the move where he was holding the guy Sanchez close to him, so there was nowhere for him to run.
Pulled a Ramos, they might say.
Yeah. Oh, well, in America we say the James Harden, the basketball move. You grab their arm, throw your hands up, and they ask, and then the other team gets the foul call on them.
Okay, so that's an interesting take on the penalty. Christian, thoughts on the penalty call?
You don't have to insult him by calling him a Ramos. That's just really, really mean. Yeah, of all the penalty decisions for plays like this that have happened in the World Cup, especially to England, This was probably the softest one for the ones that haven't been called. Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe they gave this one compared to the ones where Harry Kane was being held by two people on the ground. Like, it's just insane. But to me, this is a penalty. He is holding him. He clips him as well. Harry Kane isn't innocent, but that happens on every single time he was fouled. So that is a penalty.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I fall. I think it's the clip that sells it for me. Paul, thoughts on the penalty call?
Yeah, I think Matt has a very interesting take on it. I don't agree with that at all.
I love it. I love it.
I think it was a horrendous assault on an innocent victim. Carlos Sanchez, Greco-Roman wrestling style tackle on Harry Kane. Poor Harold, No, definite penalty. The referee had already warned the players. It was just silly, really, by Sanchez. But when he was at Aston Villa, he kind of had a reputation for giving away needless fouls. So, given how heated the game was, it's not really a surprise at all. But it's interesting that you chose to use the word handsy about it, because later on, I don't know if you noticed, the England corners, they would all line up to try and run onto it, and the English commentary was referring to it as a love train. So there's been some really weird emotions this match, particularly after the final whistle as well. So
that's hilarious. Yeah, so for me, like I kind of alluded to earlier, I mean, I think this is a penalty. Again, I think both, they're not innocent, but for me, what sells it is Harry Kane gets by him and Sanchez kind of jumps and is kind of on his back and sort of takes him down. I know he's maybe trying to avoid contact, but that was kind of what sealed it for me as being a penalty. For me, I don't understand. I know zonal marking gets a ton of bad rap on corners. For me, I actually prefer it. I think Liverpool has employed a zonal marking system definitely since Van Dijk came in, and they've been fantastic on defending corners. I know this isn't a Liverpool podcast, but that was just one example where I've just specifically noted it. But again, I think, I just think sometimes when you're defending man-to-man, everybody wants to say it's better to defend man-to-man, but a lot of times you're so focused on defending against that man that you just lose track of the ball completely. And so for me, I would like to see more of that, especially when they're looking for holding calls and things like that. So that's my little soapbox rant there. 77. Well, actually, hold up. Before we move on, obviously, Harry Kane scores the penalty. Before it's taken, there's a huge delay. Colombian players arguing, all of that. They were scuffing up the penalty mark. We've seen this in a couple of, other instances. I think mainly with South American teams, we've seen it before where they were trying to, scuff up the mark. They were delaying it. They were doing all kinds of different things. This is where the Henderson headbutt happens. Christian, you were raising your hand. Do you have something you would like to add?
Yeah. Henderson was carded there. And yeah, they showed he headbutted him, so that is correct. I don't know how no other cards were issued during that time. They were really in his face screaming and would not move.
Isn't that when Ospina got a card? And
I don't think so.
Ospina. I thought another Colombian player got a card during that at the very beginning.
Yeah, there was five given all in a short space of time. I think it was around that. That's when the heads really started to go on the Colombian.
No, that was after the penalty though. When Falcao was.
It was after
Falcao was booked.
Before it was scored.
No. Falcao's was after the penalty was scored. Like it was a couple of minutes later.
I think the only guy that actually got a yellow was Sanchez for taking Kane down on that play, if I remember correctly. I don't think there were any other yellows, Christian, so I think you're spot on there. Which is interesting. Yeah, I would have expected more. Do we want to talk about the Henderson headbutt? Christian's already given, I think, a couple of his thoughts. Paul, your thoughts on Henderson kind of headbutting?
Yeah, can't really defend it. He knew what he was doing, didn't he? It turns out you can headbutt someone without actually looking at them. But no defense for him, really. I'm not a massive Henderson fan anyway, so...
If you're going to headbutt, you might as well go full Zidane. Like,
Zidane's
Yeah. Did you say you're an Everton fan?
No, I'm a Man City season ticket.
City. Okay. Oh, okay. Matt's got a City shirt on.
Didn't notice, but I do show.
Yes, I remember City from my Soccer Tavern video. You let me. So I did know that. You were okay with him getting a yellow there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt's thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was fine with the yellow. Christian, why is it not a red if it's in the rules?
I think it is a red. It should have also been a red.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it was a very light tap. He was kind of just like,
It doesn't
hey,
change anything. If he missed and he swung at him, then that's a red card.
But what do you mean?
If he
swung?
doesn't touch him and he swings his arm and tries to punch him in the face, that's a red card.
Well, that's something completely different.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a punch to the face.
I mean, a headbutt to the face is the same general concept.
Well, no, it's like in the 41st minute. Like, it's like Cuadrado had Lingard by the neck, which in the rules is like a red card, but nobody cared. I don't know how that didn't go to VAR in the first
I honestly
place.
didn't see that, so
I don't even remember that play.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're
Me and
talking
my
about.
friends were talking about that, and like you went on Twitter, and like people were losing their minds. Like Cuadrado just had Lingard like wrapped around, just grabbing his neck, and like
On a set piece? Or
yeah,
just-
it was with the headbutt. It was right after the headbutt. Everyone's crowded, and I don't know how nobody did anything about that or nobody complained, but it was like a weird play. But
I think Lingard needs a little wrap around the neck to calm him down.
All right, we're running. We're running a little long here, so let's speed it up. Kane scores his penalty right down the middle. Fantastic. I mean, his composure in those instances is amazing. I did double check. Yeah, Sanchez and Henderson are the only ones who got yellow cards in that play. So did just want to confirm that. 77th minute, Lingard is on a breakaway to an extent, and Sanchez comes in and does a slide tackle near him. I think Lingard goes down a bit easy. Real quick, Paul, penalty, no penalty for you? What were your thoughts? This was not called as a penalty.
No penalty, really. I mean, again, I'm not a massive Jesse Lingard fan either. So if someone wants to take him out, it's fine by me. But it was never a penalty. Lingard has a habit of going down quite easily as well. So, nah.
All right, so you were good with no penalty, Matt?
yeah, I was fine with no penalty. There wasn't
Christian?
really contact to take him down.
Yeah, no penalty at all. I really don't think there was much contact, if any.
All right, 81st minute, Kyle Walker, who had a couple shaky moments in this match, does a terrible giveaway, and that was basically Colombia's, best chance outside of the goal that they get, but best chance from open play. Walker had a couple instances where he looked like he didn't know what to do with the ball, and he would dribble into pressure or make a nervy pass. And on this one, he just dawdled a little bit too much, and Baca gets in there, either toe pokes it away or just throws him off a bit where he doesn't hit the back pass well enough. Baca collects it, drives at the defense, lays it off to Cuadrado, who blasts it over the net. I thought that could have been, Colombia's last chance, and so it wasn't. And that's where we'll talk about in just a second. I thought Colombia finally, they roared to life for basically the last 10 minutes of the match. They started to make some offensive subs. They switched up their formation. They got two forwards in there, and again, looked better, whereas 80 minutes of the match, England just completely dominated. 93rd minute is when all the action happens. So it's somewhat of an innocuous play. I think it might have been a 50-50 ball, and Uribe, who had come on as a sub, just decides to just crack it from 40 yards out. And I only saw it live. Fox, for whatever reason, the U.S. broadcasters did not show any replays of this.
And they didn't even mention it again.
Yeah, it looked like an absolutely incredible shot, and Pickford does very well to get there and save it. I still don't know if it was going to be on target or not, but it looked like a fantastic save. It forces a corner kick, and Colombia gets the goal from the corner. Yerry Mina, I still don't know how to pronounce it. I've heard it both ways. It's spelled with a Y, but I've heard in Colombia you pronounce it as a J. I don't know, but Mina gets it on the corner. Third goal of the tournament. What's his name? Trippier is on the post, and it just bounces over him. A little bit harsh, but again, 93rd minute, it's 1-1. Paul, what was going through your mind through all this?
Typical England. It was strange. Like you said, the last sort of 10 minutes, Colombia really started to actually try and play. And if they'd have done that from the beginning, they would have certainly given us a hard time and probably gone on to win it, because by that point, and it probably is what led to Walker misplacing the pass, is that I don't know if we got complacent or we just looked tired, mentally tired, because that seemed to carry on for the first quarter of an hour of the extra time as well. But when that goal goes in, you look around and you think, well, is it the defending? Yeah, the marking's not great, but it's also a really good header down into the ground, and it bounces up over Trippier, who actually was born in the town next to me, so local lad. But he needs to grow a little bit, too short to jump and keep that out. there was a lot of swearing that went on. Yeah, it just felt deflated, but it was frustrating because we felt so on top of them and they hadn't offered much. We pretty much nullified them. Just interesting you mentioned about it not being shown on the US coverage. That shot that Pickford saved, they did show it here. It was well on target. It was, top binge, top corner. Pickford does well. He just gets his fingertips to it. It was a rocket.
Wow, and I can't believe they didn't show. Matt, thoughts on the goal?
Yeah, maybe if Trippier wasn't on the post and marking, they wouldn't have won that header.
No, that's.
Yeah, I'm just saying that to make Dave mad, but
riled up.
Yeah, I thought it was like you said, the last 10 minutes they looked like a better team, and for some reason after the goal and going into extra time, Colombia seemed just like they completely changed their mentality where the game completely calmed down. They weren't really fouling anymore, and they were kind of okay with every decision the ref made, which was kind of strange. Like it just kind of like literally right after the goal, they were just like buddy with Geiger, and I think that benefited England where they were less fired up because they weren't as mad at like the referee.
Interesting. Christian, thoughts on the goal and or what Matt said?
I don't know if you guys, sorry, I'm going to do something else before I even get to that. Did you guys notice that the last about 15 minutes, the atmosphere in that stadium was like dead silent? I don't know if everyone was just nervous.
I think so.
But it sounded really, really quiet. Like something I've never actually heard or seen in a World Cup knockout game. It was pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, I think so. I think it was majority Colombians in the stadium, and when they were down, I think it was nervous energy from them. And then England fans, I'm sure, were exceptionally nervous, as they should have been.
Dead silent for like the entire last 15 minutes of that game, which was weird. But yeah, back to the actual goal. I just wish that initial shot went in because to give it up on a corner, blech. But that would have been an amazing goal if he had actually got that. And if I'm giving up a goal and I'm an England fan, I'd rather give up a goal like that. That's like just a world-class, ridiculous goal out of nothing than just an ordinary header in the last second of the game where marking wasn't great. And I know you're going to hate it, but I think Trippier should do better.
Yeah,
I really think he's got to do better on the post. Like, I know you love your man on the post, but you got to do better. Like, you got to actually stop the ball. You're not just standing there for the hell of it.
Yeah, no, I said that.
Yeah, but he just didn't really look like. I know they're exhausted at that point too. So like,
and it happens quickly.
I am aware of that.
The bounce, he like ducked down, and then by the time he stood back up,
he did get a deflection on it, and he deflected it into the crossbar and in. So again, it's being harsh on him, but I mean, he's there. That's it happens so quick. I mean, the header's coming from the 6-yard box. Mina is very talented, so I don't want to take anything away from him. Yeah. And he could have done better, but it's slightly harsh on him.
I just gotta throw out who the fuck is gonna guard Mina, because it seems like he is just always open on corners, and he's scored in 3 consecutive games for Colombia now.
Okay.
I understand he's big, he's athletic, but somebody fucking mark him. Like, okay. Are you kidding me? Again?
Okay, yeah. For some reason, in the game plan of England, they thought it was a good idea to keep sending long balls to Raheem Sterling when he was marked by Mina. And it just wasn't really working out. And I was just losing my mind. I'm like, why are they playing him back to goal in these? Like, they did it for a lot of the first half, especially. I was losing my mind.
Did anyone notice that? Oh, sorry.
Paul, thoughts on Matt's comment?
Yeah, they've been doing that in the last few games where Sterling's been playing as that second striker, and it's just pure and simply to exploit his pace. I actually think he's wasted there. Where he plays at City, where he's on the wing, and you've got Aguero or Sané on the other wing. They're not particularly tall players, and the idea is simply just to run onto it. Obviously, with England, it's a different setup. But if those balls are going along the ground and a genuine through ball like that, I think he's got a better chance against Mina. But you're asking a lot of him to try and win it in the air, obviously.
Yeah. Christian, I know you want to add something real quick before we get to the end?
Yeah. I just wanted to throw out, did anyone notice Mina got hurt in the celebrations?
Yeah.
Because he clearly could not move for the entire like extra time. Did he pull his groin or something? That's what
Yeah.
he was
Yeah,
holding.
and I was tweeting that. I don't know why.
Why
Especially,
did Vardy not just
Okay.
run at him the rest of the game? Like he would have just blown by him.
Yeah, that was exactly what I tweeted. And I don't
I
know.
actually didn't even see that.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't do that because, I mean, he clearly was laboring out there. And, Vardy with all his pace, I would have expected them to target that. 115th minute, Dyer has a free header that he puts over. Again, you just felt for England in that instance. And then we go to penalties.
Well, Dele
Colombia.
Alli also, we didn't talk about earlier, had a ball right on his head inside the 6-yard box and it went over. That was an awesome chance too.
Yeah, good call.
Eric Dyer wants it.
Say again, Paul?
That was Eric Dyer that put it over, wasn't it? Not
Yeah, in the 115th minute, it was Dyer. Christian's talking about
in regulation.
Oh, sorry.
Alli had a ball on his head.
Yeah, I don't remember that, Christian, but I will believe you. Okay, so 115-minute Dyer misses and then goes to penalties. Colombia is up first, and historically, I think it's something like 2/3 or more of teams that go first in penalty shootouts end up winning the penalty shootout. Colombia went first, and spoiler alert, England ended up winning. So, they're knocking off curses left and right here. Paul, do you want to talk us through, just your thoughts on the penalty shootout?
Yeah, because we've seen it all before as England fans. Penalties never usually go well for us. I think I mentioned at the start, or if it was before we were on air, this was the eighth penalty shootout we've been in, and prior to that, we've only won one at a major tournament. We actually still, even though we've won that one, we hold the record for losing the most penalty shootouts at a World Cup. So, record breakers, jinx breakers, all sorts, really. No, it was a terrible feeling because I've experienced losing. Put it this way, I'm 28 and I always seem to remember England losing a penalty shootout in any tournament we've ever been in. That's just what my life has been about, bitter disappointment. But you get used to that after the first penalty goes in and you're just expecting it to go wrong from there. I think Pickford does really well, even to the ones he doesn't get to. And I didn't really have a lot of expectations of him because it's not that he's not a bad keeper. It's just we haven't really seen him tested at the highest level. I know the season at Sunderland was different. He was in a relegation battle. For Everton this year, it was a very mixed season, and a lot of people have criticisms of him for that. But no, it was full of surprises, and the penalty takers that we had wouldn't necessarily have been everybody's first choice, particularly Kieran Trippier, as good as he is, and he's a fantastic crosser of the ball. He's not somebody who you'd expect to step up, but fair play to him, he puts it away. And then Eric Dyer comes along, and I heard that my neighbours and pretty much everyone else go, "Oh no!" But well-struck penalty, not as good as Kane's, but yeah, I can't complain about it. And it's not really sunk in because it's such an alien feeling that we actually won a penalty shootout.
Well, we're happy for you, Matt. You had something to say?
Yeah, just real quick. Why does England have their outside backs take free kicks and penalty kicks?
The short answer is we're pretty rubbish at it anyway, so we might as well, whichever player isn't the worst at it. But I think a lot of it's to do with most fullbacks now are players that when they were younger started off as wingers, and as they've got older and their coaches at a younger level turn around and say to them, "You're not that good at scoring goals or creating chances. Maybe you want to play in defence." They sort of fall into that position, and they can still hit the ball quite far with a lot of pace on it, a lot of whip. So for corners, free kicks and all that, there's usually a lot of accuracy. But particularly at club level, the players are given free rein to practice it as much as they want.
Fair enough. Yeah, good points. Matt, thoughts on the penalty shootout real quick?
Yeah, I thought we were talking before the podcast. I heard you say they were great penalty kicks. Up until I think the last one that Dyer scored, I thought Ospina should have done better. The game-winning one. Colombia, it's unfortunate to see the ball hit the bar. See the ball hit the bar. People are going to say hit target, but if they're playing,
he literally hit the target.
Well, in soccer terms, he didn't. But yeah, it's close. You have tired legs. It's such a big moment, but I'm not blaming him for hitting the crossbar. I'm sure people in Colombia and around the world are probably blaming him, but I really wouldn't put it on him necessarily.
Christian, thoughts on the pen?
Yeah, I thought Ospina made an amazing save on Henderson's. I thought Henderson actually struck that pretty well, and that was just a really good save. I think that Pickford really stepped up, made a good save. He made 2 saves, right?
No.
No,
Because the one hit the bar.
Oh, because one hit the bar. Yeah, I mean, he stepped up, made the save when they needed him to, and that Dyer one is going to haunt Ospina. As someone who's played goalie, I know the ones you get your hand on and don't keep out haunt you forever. You just don't forget them, and you think about it forever. So, that is how it is, and he should have done better. He got his hand on it, and as an Arsenal goalie against the Spurs player, it's going to haunt him even more.
Absolutely. So props to England. They are moving on 4-3 on penalties. They advanced 1-1 in regulation. Before we move on and talk about other matches, our friend David Pearson, who also works at Over the Bar, had a couple questions for us on the YouTube stream. So first up, do you think England winning the penalty shootout tonight is going to be a psychological boost for them the rest of this tournament now that the hoodoo of the penalties has been lifted? Paul, thoughts?
I absolutely hope so. It should be a bit of a turning point, really, because if the nation of fans don't really believe in you and you end up pulling something off, then surely that must give you the confidence that you can actually do something, you can change people's perceptions. Yeah, it's a big game moment, really, a penalty shootout. It's probably the biggest you're going to get in there. I don't think many people pick it. But yeah, having done that now in one round and knowing that they can do it, but also the performance that came before it, knowing that they can take on a Colombian side that were battling, that were tenacious, and we're trying to actually rile them up. And they didn't rise to it. They just carried on playing their game to their game plan and kept a cool head. I think that will be just as important mentally going forward as well. I'd like to think it's coming home. But...
And David's going to put you on the spot there. Can they win it, or how far can they go?
He wants me to say it's coming home, like the song. I would love it to happen, but I'm being realistic. It would be typical of England now to lose the next game, which is the one everyone expects us to win, and then for Sweden to go on to get into the final. That would just be typical. But if you're just putting it pure and simply on what I know about football, I think we should expect this team to get as far as the semi-finals now. Croatia's a completely different kettle of fish. They have been so impressive in this tournament, the way they absolutely dismantled an Argentina team, which a lot of people said that Argentina team was one of the poorest for years, but I disagree. I think that they just had the wrong tactics. You've got Messi, and when you're leaving Di Maria and Dybala on the bench, then you know that you're spoilt for choice. And to be fair, they come for a tough group. Nigeria aren't a team to be laughed at either. So, yeah, I don't think we can win it, but I'll be happy just getting through to the semis.
All right, fair enough. We're going to leave the Argentina thing to one side because I'm sure we all have thoughts on that. Christian, real quick, penalties, who do next and how far can England go? Quick.
Okay. Yeah, they have finally brushed that off a little bit, and I also completely think the England mentality is just different now. I don't think that these players are the same as the last generation that were, in my opinion, far superior in talent, but they had that mental kind of holdback and rivalry between the clubs that I don't think really exists as much now. They almost seem more friends when they're at international play, but do I think they can win? I think Croatia is going to be too hard, and I think Croatia is going to win the World Cup, as I've said, and they're just so talented. But I think England should be able to make at least the semifinal and give Croatia a match.
Matt, quick.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily changes their mentality. They're in the knockout rounds of the World Cup. I'm pretty sure once you get to that stage, you think you're going to win. Literally everybody on Twitter around the world is saying it's been coming home for about a month now. So I don't think the mentality changes. These players had nothing to do with previous penalty kick shootouts. So I think it's fine. I think it's more of like a fan perspective that you feel less worried that your team can make a penalty shootout rather than these players.
Yeah, and I just echo that. I thought coming into this team already had a different mentality, and so I don't think this changes for them. But it can only be a good thing. So I mean, they can go. I think they can make the final. Croatia has seemed good, but they did not look very good against Denmark, and so England can make the final, and at that point, anything can happen. So can they win? Absolutely, they can. Before we talk about tomorrow, nope, not tomorrow, because tomorrow we're off. World Cup is off. Everybody, to remind you, it is off Wednesday and Thursday, and then it will be back on Friday. But before we talk about Friday's matches, quickly wanted to plug our partner StadiumScene.tv. So they are a travel website for you to check out if you're going to a stadium in the U.S. They have recommendations on where to park, bars, and restaurants to visit before you go to the match. So definitely be sure to check them out. In addition, they partner with content creators like us, as well as tons of other content creators for all different sports. They have blog posts, podcasts, videos, and more. Go to StadiumScene.tv and check all of that out. Friday, we have Uruguay versus France as the first match, and then Brazil versus Belgium. Paul, your thoughts on those two matches?
I really fancy Uruguay to do well. They seem to play like the Atletico Madrid of the World Cup, battling tight games. That goal they conceded the other day is the only one they've conceded this calendar year, which is quite ridiculous, really. I think it's the issue with France is that they don't seem to have clicked yet. The man for man, they're one of the best sides by far, but they just don't seem to have the same chemistry. Belgium, again, have the same problem as France, in my opinion. They have arguably the best midfield going forward with De Bruyne, Hazard, and to an extent, Witzel's not been that bad of a player either. He's kind of faded since he went to China. But when he was in Europe, he was one of the best holding midfielders. So I'd expect Belgium to do all right, and I would expect Uruguay to beat France, to tell you the truth.
So you got Belgium over Brazil and Uruguay over France.
Yeah, and that's nothing against Brazil. Brazil are, again, a really talented side, but I think they've got the same problem that Argentina had, where defensively they just don't convince me that they can really deliver this. I might be wrong, but I don't think their fullbacks are that great at defending. I think they're excellent attacking fullbacks. Marcelo going forward is excellent. Dani Alves would have been a great addition. Fortunately, he's not there. And is it Fagner or Fagner?
It's like Fagner, yeah. It's like, yeah.
He's not really done much. He's got to be careful they say that. Right?
Yeah.
He's not really convinced me either. And Miranda, again, he kind of looks like, do you remember The Mummy where he's coming back, Imhotep's coming back to being regenerated? Miranda looks like to me. So.
Oh, man, that's good. Oh, that's good. That's hilarious. Matt, your thoughts on Friday's matches? Christian, you're going to go last because I said so.
Because fuck you. Right.
Okay, so first is Uruguay-France, right?
Yes.
Okay, I have Uruguay actually winning that game. Sloppy game, as Uruguay games always are. Interesting to see if Cavani is healthy or not. So if he's not healthy, I might rethink my pick. Because Suarez, for as much as talent he has not looked anything like Suarez this World Cup. But France, they just haven't, especially since they tied US, like I always say, they're going to rebound. Like literally every game since, it's like, oh, they're going to rebound. They're going to rebound against this team, this team, this team. And they're getting results, but it's like, I always just want them to dominate because of how talented they are. And it just doesn't seem like they have that collective just like ability to dominate a team, I guess.
Okay.
And especially with Uruguay's defensive structure, I think it's gonna be hard for them to break down. I think they could have the best two center back pairing, Uruguay. So that's gonna be an interesting game, but I don't think it's gonna be too high scoring. The next game, Belgium, Brazil. I have Brazil winning the tournament going in, so that's the reason I'm just going to stick with Brazil. But Belgium looks so good going forward. And Casemiro's suspended, right?
Yes, that's a huge loss for Brazil.
Well, Fernandinho's in.
Yeah. I assume Fernandinho's in, but
maybe they'll start Firmino.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, going forward, Fernandinho is much better than Casemiro. But Casemiro, knowing his defensive responsibility, and his ability to just play so simple. I think Fernandinho is a little bit better than him overall, but just Casemiro's role in this Brazilian team, he just knows it so well, and knowing the wings and how attacking they are, like you were saying, like, Casemiro, it doesn't matter how much the Brazilian outside backs attack, because he does such a great job of filling in that role. They can play wherever they want, and he'll just cover for them. So it's going to be interesting how Fernandinho steps in.
Okay. For those who don't know, Christian always claims I steal his score predictions on Twitter. So that's why he's going last. I'm not just doing that to be a dick. So I have Uruguay versus France. I have France coming out of that game. I'm going to disagree with you guys. I think France has looked good. I think they've looked good when they needed to. So as soon as they figured out the formation with Giroud up top and Mbappe and Griezmann underneath, that has been good for them. I can't remember who's suspended. I think Matuidi is suspended, which is a concern for me because him and Conte in the midfield behind Pogba, or at least allowing Pogba to get forward more, I've liked that. And it seems like Tolisso might be coming in, and he doesn't play the same way as Matuidi. What's up, Matt?
Didn't Matuidi start attacking mid last game?
No. And if he did, it was on paper.
I'm pretty sure Matuidi started out left in their last game.
Yeah,
on paper.
No, that was 2 matches ago. 2 matches ago, he started out left in a 4-4-2. Last match, they started in a 4-3-3 with the 3 midfielders all tucked in. That's how they played. And Mbappe was more of a right midfield 2 matches ago, but this time he was more up top against Argentina. And they won 4-3. Even though the scoreline was close, I would say they dominated most of that match, or at least for long stretches. And so I really like them. I think they find a way to get a result against Uruguay. Brazil versus Belgium. Depends on if Marcelo is healthy or not. Fagner isn't necessarily quite as attacking, and so there's a little bit more balance on the right side. I'm really concerned about Casemiro not being there, especially if Marcelo is in there, because Casemiro does a fantastic job of filling in when Marcelo gets forward and kind of covering that space. And so if he's not there and Marcelo is in, Belgium may be able to exploit that. I picked Belgium to win the tournament, so I'm going to go with them in this game. But again, I don't have a ton of confidence. I'm very concerned about how open they can be in that 3-5-2 formation, especially if Witsel and De Bruyne are the 2 defensive midfielders in that. I thought there was a much better balance once Fellaini came in and De Bruyne was freed up a little bit more, and they had Witsel and Fellaini in the midfield, a little bit more balance there. So I'm going to say Belgium pulls that one out. Christian, you want to give your thoughts real quick?
Yeah, I'm just shocked that Nainggolan isn't there. He would have been perfect to free up De Bruyne a little bit, but we'll move on from that one. First game, Uruguay versus France. I think this is going to be a really, really difficult game to pick because, oh man, they're good teams. Uruguay defensively and France going forward are just really talented. I think Uruguay's defense holds. I think, especially if Cavani plays, I give them the advantage. If he doesn't, like Matt said, it really changes my outlook. But I still think Uruguay, just defensively, Godin and Jimenez are just so good at the back. I think that they're just not going to break down, and they're going to hold out, and it's going to be like a 1-0 win. And the other game, Belgium versus Brazil. This is the most exciting game of the tournament, in my opinion. I think that this is going to be a flyer attacking-wise. Brazil have just looked really good defensively as well, and every game I think they've gotten better and better. They're starting to form that passing routine, and there's a lot of flow to their game. Belgium came back from the dead in their last game, so you just never know when they don't know when they're beaten, and they have such talent going forward. Belgium's defense just looks a mess, and I have them in the final, but this game is just I don't know what to do. But I want to say Belgium just because my bracket that I picked originally, and I'm going to go through with it. But I think Brazil will, but I'm going Belgium.
All right, so you kind of fall.
Both teams at least score 1, but I think it's going to be like a 3-2 game. I really do.
All right, viewers and listeners, I know we're running a little bit long, so thank you so much for sticking with us through this. Paul, do you have anything else to add?
No, we covered a lot really. One thing I don't think we mentioned when we talked about the England game, it's quite a big deal on social media over here. Did you see at halftime when Sterling's going off and the Colombian coach gives him an elbow? Did they show that?
No.
You guys,
yeah, they did.
Yeah, well, as soon as halftime hits, I'm off doing things. So, yeah, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. It's the fourth official saw it, but there was no action taken. It was just a bit naughty, really, you know.
So it was an assistant coach gave him an elbow?
Yeah, he's just heading down the tunnel to come off the pitch, and he just knocks into him.
Wow. So hopefully there's some sort of retroactive action for that, whether it's a fine or something like that, because you never like to see that. But thank you for bringing that up. Do you want to remind people about Over the Bar and where they can find you?
Yeah, so you can find us on Twitter at OverTheBarFB or otbfootball.net.
Yep, and we have both those linked in the video description and podcast show notes. Please check out the Soccer Tavern YouTube channel. I'm not going to go into it, but I have another, project I work on YouTube, making all different kinds of videos about the history, culture, and philosophy of the beautiful game. So please go check that out. Lastly, if you want to get in contact with us, we would love to hear from you. Christian and I are live tweeting from our Twitter account most of the matches. It's at BT Soccer Pod. If you want to email us, our email is bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com. Please check out our website, brostalkingsoccerpodcast.com. You can read about us, check out past episodes. And finally, we actually just added this. If you want to support the show, you don't really have to do anything crazy, but we added a store, an Amazon store on the website. And so if you go to our website, click on the store, and then click Amazon, it'll take you to Amazon, and anything you buy from there, you can buy whatever you want on Amazon. We actually get a little portion of that. And, it would just help us cover, costs for the show and all of that. And again, you would be supporting us, which we would greatly appreciate. Christian, thanks for being here.
Wait, I have one thing before we head out. Are we going to talk about Ronaldo real quick? Because I feel like we have to.
No, it's a rumor. Until he signs that paper, I'm not talking about it.
Okay, fine.
All right. We'll talk about it on a future podcast. For those who don't know, it's rumored he may be moving to Juventus for 100 million pounds or euros or something like that. But until something is signed, this is silly season. I'm not believing anything till I see him in a jersey. Matt.
Still this week?
So, Matt, thanks for being here. Anything you wanted to add?
It's coming home.
All right.
Oh.
Yeah, Paul, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciated having you on, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, everybody go check out Over the Bar. We got it all linked up. You got to check it out. It's fantastic stuff. And we'll have Paul back on soon. Thanks for being here, and talk to you all soon. See you, everybody.